What's up? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, all over the world, whoever's watching. Another episode 12, Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here, and my good friend Ceara. What's up?
Hi. I thought you were supposed to be like guns a-blazing American today.
Yeah, just beating on the Second Amendment drum. Yeah, we're going to do some. It's called Shoot and Chill. It's the first annual Shoot and Chill, so that should be interesting. I was going to go, realized at the very last second I was going to do the podcast from the venue, but I realized at the last second that it's not where I thought it was, and I wasn't going to make it on time. So here we are.
Who's hosting Shoot and Chill?
There's a few groups, I think, that are hosting. Let me double check here.
I can link it. I just thought that would be cool.
Yeah, I think Kava's going to be there, and then Alpha Growth, which is an interesting kind of consulting firm. They do some really neat stuff. So yeah, we just friends of ours invited us to go, so we're going to go check it out. It should be fun.
Shoot and Chill.
Yeah, I can test out my shooting skills. Yesterday we did axe throwing.
Yeah.
Turns out Patrick and I are pretty quick studies. We figured it out like really quick, which is strange because I expected it to be like pretty hard to get the technique down, but it's actually like they distance you perfectly from the thing. So as long as you just like throw it not too hard, it rotates twice and sticks in, which is kind of hilarious. But it was fun. It was a really cool venue. They had like indoor karting and all this other shit.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was good. Anyways, it's Thursday, I think. It also snowed here last night, so I had to go buy like a beanie, and I was fucking freezing.
Oh my gosh, awesome. You're so American now. You're shooting guns and calling it a beanie.
Yeah, you can't call it a toque because most people don't know what the hell that is, except for me. Anyways, shout out to Moonwell today. We also went to the Moonwell Hacker House yesterday. Always a good time with the Moonwell guys. We're going to be hanging out with them today. There's a Moonbeam Moonwell happy hour. So anybody that's going there, we will be there. So say hi.
Denver tips.
Denver tips. That's right. If you didn't have FOMO before, maybe you do now. I don't know. But yeah, today's like actually the first official day of the conference. Before this, it was like Builders Week and some other shit.
Okay, so what's going on outside of Denver?
What's going on outside of Denver?
What's going on in the world, JD?
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably the most notable news story over the last 24 hours, you can't help but see it, is the Silvergate saga. So there's two major banks in the US that a lot of institutions partner with because they've been crypto friendly for quite some time. So Silvergate is one of them, and the other one is Signature Bank. And it was really interesting because Silvergate came out. Well, actually didn't come out. That was the problem. So Silvergate, normally you have to file your earnings reports because they're a fairly large regulated bank, and so they have to file earnings. Unfortunately, they missed the filing deadline, which with a lack of explanation, people are left to their own devices to be like, hey, why? Why didn't you file? And so there's a million probably good explanations for it, like, who knows? Maybe they were getting another audit from somewhere, or maybe the accounting firm was late, or I don't know. It's not worth speculating. I have no clue, and I have no horse in the race. But what's interesting is fairly quickly after that, Coinbase came out and just said, no more Silvergate relationship. Silvergate dumped like 50%, I think, at one point yesterday. So no bueno. That's kind of crazy. But this is. And the reason that I think it's great we led with this is like, again, one of those FUD stories that the reflex to some of this stuff is so drastic and immediate, right? So like they missed it literally yesterday. And by the end of yesterday, it had blown up. Like Coinbase cut ties, and like it was all over Twitter, and every major news outlet had, their own take on this story. So I think that just kind of tells us, again, take it with a grain of salt, take a second before you respond, just wait and see, obviously, what's going to happen. But interesting, Coinbase moved to Signature Bank, and Kraken, and I don't think we have a banner for this, but Kraken did the opposite. Kraken went to Silvergate even after this. And so kind of an interesting order of events. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But this is kind of indicative of, like, again, the uncertainty in the US with respect to regulation. So we'll see. Go ahead.
Sorry, Kraken going to Silvergate is strategic now, right? They're gonna like get the niche users who are over there.
Maybe, or maybe they got like just a smoking deal or something. Who knows?
Just interesting to think about in a positive light.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there's so many things that could have happened to Silvergate too. Like they could, in fact, have not provided earnings because the earnings were really crappy. Like who knows if they were exposed in ways that we're just not aware of yet with respect to FTX or any of the kind of second order implications of the FTX fallout. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But
We've
yeah,
got some more FUD from across the pond too with HSBC.
Yeah, they HSBC. We can so HSBC essentially says token hell. It's a hilarious headline on this one, but yeah, apparently you can't obtain crypto using their credit cards. And I think there's again this on the surface is like holy shit. Visa came out, MasterCard, Visa. They all came out saying we're maybe not doing as much by way of new partnerships and collaborations at the moment until there's some clarity on the regulatory front. So this isn't really that surprising. It's larger issuers. HSBC's credit card, I think, is a Visa. I'm not sure if it's on Visa or MasterCard, but regardless, it kind of makes sense that they're following even in the EU, and obviously HSBC is a global bank. But there's a few, like if you take a step back and think about what that actually means. I mean, there's a few other reasons why purchasing crypto from a credit card is not necessarily advisable. I mean, it passes the AML and the KYC and all this other nonsense, so that's fine. But as a credit card issuer, you have to have your fraud department, and there's if people claim false payments or false charges, there's like a whole process. And so crypto, and I don't have hard data on this, just anecdotal information, but crypto is interesting because people will buy crypto on a credit card, it'll go down, they'll be mad, and then they'll claim that it was fraudulent or this or that. So there's a whole bunch of other reasons also that are likely contributing to this. Many banks in many countries don't allow credit card deposits. I don't think I'm not sure, but for the longest time you couldn't do it in Canada, like up until very recently. So I mean, eventually we'll get some sort of goalposts on how this is all going to play out. But I think, again, we're seeing a lot of these like fairly large institutions trying to dance around the uncertainty here. And although on the surface that kind of might lead you to believe, holy shit, like we don't know what's going to happen, there's a lot of concern around this. I think the flip side is there's a lot of fairly influential institutions paying attention to this and interested in some sort of regulatory clarity. And so
there's also some trying to take control of that uncertainty, right? Which is what we're seeing in Australia.
Mm-hmm. You are fucking all over the transitions today again. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Yeah, Australia. So good segue to Australia. I'm a little fuddy about this one, actually.
I wasn't. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, you thought it was awesome when we were talking about it earlier. But I'm a little fuddy on this one. Not necessarily because I know anything that everybody else doesn't know, but
not necessarily, but it is a possibility.
But it is a possibility. But honestly, I think it's one of those things that can go one of two ways. So Australia is the first major Western regime to meaningfully take steps in this direction. There's a few other small developing nations with interesting governments and crazy devalued currencies and all these other things that are creating CBDCs. But Australia has a fairly strong foreign exchange market, fiat market. So they're not doing this necessarily because their fiat is dying and they need some other version of digital asset movement, right? Or some other asset class. So what's interesting here is they're either going to do this and be an example that we all as users and citizens of these areas want to use and are happy about using it, or they're going to do what a lot of people are afraid of, and that is with great power comes great responsibility, and they may not manage that responsibility properly. So some examples of that is right now, and we saw this in Canada. So I mean, it's still possible even without a CBDC, but right now, if the banks want to censor or get information about your banking or a whole bunch of things, they have to go through some formal channels. Now, a lot of information is coming out, in the last year or two about how much of that information is being shared with government entities already anyways, sans legal encouragement to do so. So we'll have to wait and see. But a CBDC differs even from fiat in the sense that, then the government literally has control over your assets. They can freeze them at any time. They can take them. They can do whatever they want. And so, nobody really knows what the code and so on of these CBDCs is going to look like. But if I had to speculate, what we hope will happen and what they want to happen are probably two somewhat significantly different things, right? Any government, as we're seeing, any government, left wing, right wing, doesn't matter. When given a bunch of power and a bunch of insight and a bunch of control, it's hard for them to not take it. And this is one of those things where it's like going to be right in front of them. And so once we see some of the code for these CBDCs and try to understand what capabilities these central governments will have after the fact. In a perfect world, there would be one that's not tied to, the Federal Reserves or whatever, and it has nothing, they can't print the asset, so on and so forth, but who knows? So it'll be interesting. I'm a little skeptical, but I think it is nice to see that someone's trying it. I just hope that they become the example to follow, not the one to avoid. So we'll see.
Maybe I'm not funny about it because I'm not Australian. I'm like, good for you, doing the research, pioneering, get it done. They have a bunch of use case descriptions that I think are cool. And their idea is that they can do offline payments, tax automation, have a central currency for trusted Web3 commerce, whatever that's supposed to mean. But some of the use cases here are interesting, like GST automation would be great. Or looking at onboarding new people to Web3, such as via a livestock auction. So I think that kind of stuff is why I'm not so funny about it. I think they're really looking at a lot of different options, at a lot of new use case scenarios that, frankly, as far as I can see, most government entities aren't that interested in exploring yet. And rather than have somebody work against crypto, I'd rather have them work with digital assets, right? I guess that's why I'm not funny about it. But I had spoken to some people at ATB and some people at Service, which are local banks in Canada, and they were pretty open to say, we're interested in blockchain, but we are really upset about crypto and about altcoins because we don't know how they're going to impact our markets. And most of the banks are just kind of shying away and hoping that it will go away, ignore your problems and they will go away.
Yeah.
And they recognize as individuals that isn't the best stance to take, but they don't know what to do about it as an individual necessarily, or they don't have the clout to make some sort of large scale change or influence. So seeing Australia do this, and they're also working with the New Zealand Bank, Bank of Australia, New Zealand. I think that's really exciting because it's just a new level of acceptance for digital assets, right?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think again, if it's done right, then then it can be hugely beneficial for the space. And I think where some of the maybe tin hat conspiracy theory stuff comes in is Australia was kind of authoritarian during COVID. And again, it all depends. It all depends kind of where you fall on this and who you get your news from. But for all intents and purposes, the oversight from the Australian government with their apps, their location tracking, you could leave your house for an hour a day, only within a 2-block radius, all this other crazy shit. They've got a taste of that crazy Big Brother power. And so I'm skeptical because it's just rare that you see anybody not take advantage of an opportunity to wield power. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I think the use cases, to your point, are actually great. CBDCs, if done properly, can be incredibly useful. In my opinion, they can be used as contract assets. They can be used for many, many, many things. Very cheap, very quick, very efficient payments, settlements. Again, there's a lot of automation, but again, you got to think kind of where's the balancing act here, right? So if they're going to automate your sales tax, that's cool. Then you don't have to do remittance and all this other nonsense, and you don't have to worry about that. It can happen right at point of sale, probably. That's great, but then you have to remember what that means, though, is that they have absolute control and they can change it at any time. What happens with the proceeds of your transactions? If they can siphon off whatever their GST is, then they can siphon more off. They can make it so that you can't transfer it. Like, there's just a whole bunch of things that hopefully they address.
Well, on that though, what is interesting about this is that the bank isn't doing it alone. So they've actually put together a consortium.
Yeah.
You can check out those consortium partners yourself if you're interested, but it's Canvas Digital, DigiCash, and then Commonwealth Bank, Australian Bonds Exchange. But it's really both ends of the spectrum, I think. I mean, they haven't gone super deep into the DeFi hole, but but they are bringing people on to lead use cases who are going to be actual experts in that, and maybe can flex and sway so that we don't see quite like Big Brother 5. We don't have to have 2084 Orwellian town, you know?
I'm not as confident that they are, in fact, addressing it with all the right stakeholders. I think the last people that should be at the table deciding what to do about privacy are the large banks, who stand to lose the most if crypto and blockchain pick up in terms of market share potentially, or they're going to have to adjust their business models, which many of them have been reluctant to do at this point. I think we have this is a segue to our next topic.
I was gonna say, you're just fudding yourself on camera. Like,
no, just wait. Because what I think is kind of interesting here is that, you know, they're putting this consortium together, but it's all TradFi incumbents generally. And in the US, it's something similar. Like, they've got a lot of committees and a lot of kind of exploratory activities going on right now for even a US CBDC. And our critique of that, you know, both publicly and privately, has been, but like, are you actually getting meaningful stakeholder input? Like, are you talking to protocols and participants and retail users of blockchain to figure out like what their concerns are? Because I think if we had a real conversation with, you know, all the stakeholders at the table, it would be a hell of a lot more fruitful than all of these kind of siloed discussions where you get all of the crypto forward people together. They think they've got good consensus. Then they go and talk to the banks and they have a totally different consensus. And we'll have to see how that all plays out. I know in the US, they're talking about doing it through the Fed. In my opinion, that would be catastrophic, because then it'll end up being another way that they can impact the monetary supply. And that we know has led to some interesting environments. Okay, so where I want to go with this though is, there was an interesting article that was here that we found today. Where is that? Did we not include that?
Is this the BIS one?
No. The amount of banks that are North American banks.
No.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we've got it here. We've got it. There we go. Okay, so there's another one that came out that you know, they did a bit of a study in the first half of 2022, and I found this interesting because I didn't realize this was the case. But the vast majority of banks that hold crypto assets are in the Americas, like the vast majority. I can't remember the exact number. I'm not sure if you can see it in the article, but which is kind of interesting, right? Like the one region where the regulatory uncertainty is probably at its peak is the one area where there's the most large-scale regulated participants. I like that. I think that bodes very well. To my point from before, there's enough meaningful stakeholders from the institutional level that hopefully, at the very least, they might not influence the regulation we want, but they're probably going to force the hand of things becoming a little bit more clear quickly. And the decisions that the regulators make won't just now impact, you know, the smaller businesses. They're going to impact Wall Street. As far as lobby is concerned, that's important. Wall Street doesn't like, you know, negative impacts from regulation. So, anyways, we'll have to wait and see how that happens. But I thought that was interesting. You know, there's global banks are very far behind the 8 ball on this one. Banks in the Americas are all over it, yet we have the most uncertain, you know, oversight conditions out of anybody. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but it is promising. I think that is promising. I just said that the we need all the stakeholders talking. Totally agree with that, but it's good to see that there's a good contingent of large institutions.
Just for some of those numbers, 62% of crypto asset potential exposure and 2/3 of banks holding crypto are in the Americas.
There you go. So
I
that's
guess the Americas is north and south, which does make sense if we're thinking about Bitcoin South America.
Yeah, I mean, there is a fairly solid contingent in South America, of course, of crypto participation. But yeah, I think it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see. And this is just a subset of data too, right? Like this, they obviously didn't look at every bank globally to figure this out, but it's probably a fairly accurate subset. So I think interesting, very interesting.
I just like the phrasing of this. We haven't talked about critical thinking yet today, and I'm just going to jump on it really quick. 11 of them are in the Americas, North America, South America, with 4 in Europe and 2 in other parts of the world.
So what is that?
They could have listed if it were in Australia or China or any other specific place, Nigeria, wherever. I don't care where they are. But I appreciate this concept of other parts in the world, which also leaves us open to other parts in not the world.
What?
Yeah, when we populate Mars, how many banks there are going to hold these assets?
Everybody. But it's Doge only on Mars. I think Elon said
invest now in your meme coins.
Yeah, it's only Doge. Like that's going to be the only. Yeah, definitely not financial advice. All right, let's end this. Let's end this on a less FUD note.
You want a good note? Here we go.
A good note. So this is like not the best kept secret ever. I think this isn't surprising to anybody. That Robinhood's been working on a meaningful DeFi wallet. I happen to have seen it as part of some early testing. It's pretty awesome as far as like, a first step. I think they had some good models to follow. The Coinbase DeFi wallet is unbelievable. And the way that they include dApps and different things and the exposure to users is crazy, obviously. KYC, proper users. So the beta launch, just a few months ago, it's pretty exciting, to see, again, Robinhood, even amidst all of the uncertainty, Robinhood, who has their own challenges with the SEC for other reasons, is still, pushing forward cautiously. We talked about this in one of the episodes earlier this week, I think, or last week. They are moving cautiously, but it's exciting. The iOS app is out. I think they had 1 million people on the wait list.
And it said that everyone's cleared, no wait list.
So good to go.
Just go for it. LG.
Robinhood's not paying us to say any of this shit. Obviously, I kind of wish too. But we did say that we're definitely not going to be reporting stories based on any type of sponsorship at any point. So anyway, so that's exciting. I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. But we're seeing a lot more institutions dabbling in the wallet space, and I think one of the number one stated focuses of both Coinbase DeFi Wallet and Robinhood is user experience. Robinhood is known for simplicity. Their Robinhood app is like so simple, but so perfect. Like it works perfectly. It's super simple, but it's like, there's not a lot of, and that's, I think, been one of their biggest attributes that has led to their success, I think, is just the user experience, the onboarding, the customer service at Robinhood is quite good. So yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. But I think it'll make the whole space better, right?
Okay, JD, before we go, from Twitch, we've had a few people tuning in on Twitch each day.
Nice.
And today, Ghost Floof wants to know why we're telling people to go FUD themselves. You can clear that up for him.
Yeah, we can probably clear it up. So the whole go FUD yourself is what we're trying to do here is we're trying to zoom out a little bit from many of these clickbaity headlines and different things, because as we mentioned even at the beginning of this stream, often what happens is you read something, the title is hyperbolic, of course, because they've got to try to get clicks. That's how these media outlets make money. And so what we're trying to do is help you not FUD yourself into fear, complete inaction, by just saying, hey, there's maybe some truth to this. It's probably not as crazy as we're thinking, or this is absolutely absurd. Someone got this wrong. So the reason that we're calling this Go FUD Yourself is more or less what we're saying to these FUDdy headlines. Go FUD yourself. So we're not telling you as the users to FUD yourself necessarily, but we're talking more about it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek response to the headlines, I think. I don't know. What are your How would you answer that, Ceara?
I said almost the opposite. I said that you have to FUD yourself because we won't FUD you. We're not here to bring the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We want to bring that critical thinking. And so if you're going to FUD yourself openly, it's on you.
Go do it. Go do it.
But you can check out. We have a bunch of episodes. We do an episode each day, and they are on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. So,
and
if you want to know the news,
they go to LinkedIn too. LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. So we're like kind of all over. We just need to get on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think we should.
Yeah, we have to have a few episodes first, and then we can do that. Yeah. I was looking at uploading stuff to Rumble too. We can't live stream on Rumble yet, but after a few episodes, we can do that as well. And part of why we're looking at putting it everywhere is just because it is unbiased, right? JD and I have very different views and opinions, and so we are actually able to bring this like neutral, critical thinking lens to whatever's going on in the world.
And hopefully we make it a little fun. I don't know. I think it's interesting to talk about this stuff. Hopefully you can come in kind of for your daily dose and figure out what at least the major headlines were over the last 24 hours. And just kind of gets you going. So make sure.
What hasn't happened yet is no one tunes in and tells us we're wrong. No one comments and is like, you idiots.
What's going to be fun actually is, maybe inviting some people, just random people from the audience to come on and chat one day and ask questions and talk about the news stories. That'd be a lot of fun. Anyways,
so if you want to
go FUD yourself. Yeah, 12:30 Eastern every day, Monday to Friday. Even when it's inconvenient, we're still going to do it. And make sure you like and subscribe and do all that shit so you get notifications when we're live, and check it out. Share with your friends. Send us feedback, good, bad, and ugly. We want to hear it all. Go FUD yourself. Have a great day.